Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking about what part of Canada we have now moved to. If you don't know, we just got a new home and I'm currently running a series on every information I can churn out there about this whole thing, and this video will also include like the best cities to the best of my knowledge where you can buy a house and how like costly cities are from each other, and maybe even provinces. But that's what we'll be talking about today. If you're interested in that, definitely keep on watching. So we moved to Canada in February of 2021 and we landed in Hamilton. Hamilton is farther away from downtown Toronto. It's about maybe 35 to 40 minutes from downtown Toronto, and that's where we landed for like 2 months before we moved back into Mississauga, which was like closer to town. They call it GTA, Greater Toronto Area. These are areas surrounding Toronto and like Toronto and environs. So we moved there and we're there for 20 months and we have now moved to the Niagara region. Yes. What's out? Like, what are the odds that we're now in the Niagara region, which is about 1 hour 20, 1 hour 15 away from downtown Toronto. And the story of here, actually, a lot of questions came around. Oh, how did you choose where to buy a house? Was it just solely based on price, the schools for your kids? I'm going to try to answer and like touch on everything in this video. So like I said, we were in Hamilton and we loved it actually, because we're not keen on the distance to Toronto. I always ask my friends that say, oh, I want to stay in the GTA, or I want my house to be here. Like, why? Literally, why? And personally, I even like the suburbs better. I prefer, like, I could be a country girl for all I care. Like, I don't like the city noise, but that's just my personal preference. But anyway, if you have business there, right, like I said, we had to move to Mississauga because my husband got a job he was looking to get a job. That was what influenced our decision. He was looking to get a job in Toronto, which he eventually did, and he had to go into work at some point 3 times a week and things like that. So that paid off while we were there. Right now, why we moved back here was, number one, it just feels like it was meant to be, and I'll tell you why. So bear in mind that we landed in Hamilton, went back to Mississauga. When we were in Hamilton before we found a house in Mississauga, I found a house in the city we live right now. Like, I'm talking the month we landed Canada. I saw a house there and I was telling my husband, well, who is also my best friend, I have never heard of this city before, but look at this house. It was a great deal. It was like a whole 4-bedroom house for about 1.4 at the time. It's crazy now, by the way. But I was just like this is so great. And we ended up paying 2004 in Mississauga on rent, by the way, and I'm just like, this one is like, it will give me all the space to do all the work that I need to do in my line of work and the brands I work with. My space matters and things like that. But when we weighed it like in relation to the potential of my husband getting a job in downtown, we decided to move closer to Toronto. Also because we were new, we just didn't want to like move to the suburbs immediately. Like, we wanted to see what that area had for us. We didn't want a situation where our jobs will now be subject to this area, this Niagara region we're in now. There are more opportunities in downtown when it comes to like coming into office, or even if you're not coming into office, there are more offices there. So that was what took precedence over my lifestyle influencer job at the time. So we like let go of that idea. But for me, it's just like, how is it that we now ended up in this city? Like, that name has been in my head literally since the month we entered Canada, and here we are, right? But anyway, that was like something that was really, really major for me, and I'm just like, okay, I see something there. Or could it be a coincidence? I don't know, but I like to take it. Now, when it even comes to proximity to downtown, now we have moved away from Mississauga. Like I said, where we used to live and where we are right now is actually exactly 1 hour. However, in terms of my husband's job, he still has to go into the office, but only once a week now. So it makes sense that we're able to live in this area, because truth be told, at the time we bought this house, houses that were around Mississauga and like the GTA were like 200,000 more expensive than what we paid here for this size of house that happens to be a brand new house at the time we bought this house. Now that the market has dwindled, you can definitely get a house of the same price we have paid now in that area. Definitely not as big, but you can definitely like put your money in that area right now. But for us, we wanted a big house because I work from home. My husband works from home for the most part. Like, we have 2 kids. We just wanted to get something that was spacious enough. And like, when we now started to look price wise, this one made sense. And again, I would say it feels like it was meant to be, because we had started looking for houses since January of 2021, guys. Like, even before we had used a year in Canada, we started looking for houses. And that's it. Like, the first realtor we're working with brought us to this region a lot. There's so many cities here. I just felt some kind of connection to Hamilton, especially. We didn't end up getting a house in Hamilton, but where we got is still like in the Niagara region. So when we now eventually said, okay, maybe Hamilton, this area is not working for us, we laid back on the house hunt. And then when we started to look again, another realtor now started taking us to like Oshawa, places like that. We personally didn't like that side of like town, Markham. And I don't know why, it was just something that both of us just didn't really gel with. I think it's familiarity, just because we had not lived in that area, right? It was more homely for us to feel this area. And also bear in mind that twice now we've come to the Niagara region for my birthday, for my husband and my daughter's birthday. It just seemed like we like this area. Like, we have gone to Niagara Falls like twice, and we really, really like the proximity to the falls and to the US, which brings me to, another factor we considered when we're choosing this area. I'm a brand influencer. A lot of brands I work with are in the US, and there are even times I've lost brand deals just because they're like, oh, we can't ship to your address. But now I'm able to have a New York address, and also because the New York side is closer to where we stay, able to have that New York address and also now have like Canada. So like, I'm getting best of both worlds. The other day I was checking gyms in my city, and the second closest was in Buffalo, New York. Like, I'm just like, okay, I'm still settling in. I've not started to explore. And bear in mind that I have my 10 years US visa, so I'm just going to be going in and out. Like, that is a major flex for me, and I love it for me. But anyway, at the time, like, those are things we considered, saying that, okay, and then when we now research kids school, my dad's friend, there was a time my dad came to visit, and my dad's friend raised her kids in this region, and she spoke highly. And then I started to research. I saw that the Niagara region and even Oakville have the best schools for kids. Don't quote me, that's just based on my research. So that worked perfectly fine for me. I really liked just because education for your kids too is something that is very paramount. So that was another thing that kept us. But overall, I think just the price and the size was the first thing that drew us in. Then we started to talk around every other thing, and it made sense now that, okay, my job, it made sense now that, okay, my husband only has to go to work once a week. Really, why are we trying to be somewhere that the money will be ridiculous? And let me just say it here as well, just like an advice for whoever is like saying, oh, we must live in the GTA. Honestly, if it works for you, like if your work is around there and whatever, that's great. Like, I'm not even going to try to discourage anybody. It has its own perks. Living in that area is great, especially if you like the city life and stuff like that. But if you look at like your life and you really don't have business there, I think it's wise to like spread your tent. It doesn't only have to be Niagara region. There's also the other side, which is like, you can go to London, Ontario, you can go to Oshawa. Those are Ottawa rather. There are so many Nigerians in even Ottawa. Like, and Ottawa shares border with Quebec as well, right? It's close to the Quebec province in Canada. So like, I'm just saying, if you don't have to go in office, we have friends who have moved from the whole of Ontario to go to Calgary, to go to like Saskatchewan, cheaper provinces, just because their work is flexible and it allows them to work from home. It's like you're earning the salary of Ontario, but you're spending it in another region. Like, that is a big flex. And I know that I'm just like generalizing and saying a lot, but I hope I'm touching the area where it will help you. But that point is just, if you don't really have business, for some people it's like, oh, my church is keeping me here. But if you look at it like your church is just once a week, you can literally drive 1 hour. In Canada, the roads are great. So a lot of times when we even go into town, like I call it now, we don't even feel it like, well, obviously your fuel gauge, you feel it. But in terms of the stress on the road and whatever, you don't even feel it like you're driving for long. And the other day I was telling my husband how when I was living in Lagos, I was living in Lekki myself, I was living in Magodo. That's like 2 ends of Lagos. Lagos, and I still used to do that commute, sometimes 2 hours. Like, so why is it like a big deal, right? I will come and see her, she'll come and see me. So now it's like we love the area in terms of like even activities for the kids in the Niagara region and things like that. Niagara Falls is here. I have always been in love with that view, like in love with that view. So I just love it, and I feel like there's so many cities here. If you're looking to move to the Niagara region, you can look at Welland, you can look at Thorold, you can look at St. Catharines, you can look at Niagara Falls in itself, you can look at Hamilton, Grimsby. Like, there's so many. And another reason I like it is, unlike the GTA, Brampton, Milton, which are also great but definitely more expensive, it's on like the same stretch of road. Like, you don't have to like go into corners and corners and corners to drive to this area. You're just coming all the way from the airport, and it's just a straight stretch of road all the way to New York. If you're veering off the main road, it's just like 5 minutes to get to your city, or 2 minutes to get to your city, right? Unlike if you're going to like cities in some other parts of the GTA where you're leaving the main highway and you're like driving a good 30 minutes, 25 minutes before you get into there. So that's that. And I also see that a good number of Nigerians are here. The other day I went into a store and I literally heard Mommy Emabo. I'm just like, when I saw my husband in the car, he said I should have said Chero Tutu to translate for my non-Yoruba speaking audience. I went into a store and I heard someone speak my dialect, say Mommy come. But anyway, just to say that that was a major question, and a lot of people asked, oh, where are you guys now? I see you're no more in Mississauga. Well, we're now in the Niagara region, and we're exactly one hour away from Mississauga, and about 1 hour 15-20 from downtown Toronto. We honestly love it here. Like, I don't have any reason to say whether or not we love it if we don't. If we don't, then I will just not talk about it, right? But we honestly love it here. Is it the peace and quiet? I mean, Mississauga, the area we say Mississauga had peace and quiet, so it's not even about that. But I feel like apart from the size of the house, we just feel at home here, right? I feel like when you're also buying a house, you don't set out to say, like, a lot of times there's so many things you will consider before making that conclusion, of which a major factor will also be like the price and the market value of the house at the time you're buying it, right? So for us, it was like that was the main thing. That was what the realtor sent to us that stood out for us, one of the ones that stood out for us. And then every other thing in the middle now started to make sense around it. But that's it. I just wanted to share that. So if you're in any of the cities I've mentioned in this Niagara region, I'm your neighbor. Hey neighbor. And we're here now. We love it. So yeah, I hope I answered that question. I hope this is helpful to anyone. I just want to also still emphasize the fact that you don't have to be somewhere where houses are expensive. Honestly, there are even places that are cheaper we could have gone to if my husband's job didn't require him to like still commute. If we were like totally work from home, both of us, I feel like we could have still gone further. However, you also have to keep in mind that, the farther you go, the less the value of the house can appreciate. Like, there's so many other things you have to consider market wise. But if it's the home you want to live, you're not doing it for investment. Honestly, I feel like, because we even considered Calgary. Let me tell you, when we actually started shopping for houses in January of 2022, we considered Calgary. Honestly, again, it was my husband's job that was just keeping us here. Like, oh, you still have to come in, you still have to come in. And at the time we even committed to this house, it was remote, but there was possibility of him going in. Before we moved there, I started going in 3 times a week, but now it's now back to once a week, which still makes sense for us. So we didn't want somewhere that would be like ridiculously far, and then the commute to be ridiculous, because if we move to like Ottawa or say London, where people were throwing like, oh, big houses, cheap houses in our faces, how will you actually go to work once a week? But for this, I feel like anything that's like 1 hour 30 minutes is still very reasonable for commute. There's also another area, I think Cambridge, Waterloo, Kitchener, I hear it's coming up, and a lot of Nigerians are keen into that area. A lot of people are realizing that, okay, that's another area that the prices are fair. It's about 1 hour 20 to downtown, and it makes sense, right? But yeah, if you've got your coin, then anything Oakville, that's you people, Burlington, Milton, Brampton, Mississauga, Where else is in that my area, that my former area? Those are the real ballers, right? But then again, like I said, it also depends on what you want, right? I'm guessing you can maybe even get a house for 500k as low as 650 in Mississauga, actually, but it might be a condo, like, and everybody knows that condos don't appreciate as much as townhouses or detached homes, and you also don't get like appreciation value, right, as much as you get for houses in the long run. So those are things to keep in mind, but it also depends on what you're looking for. But I'm just saying everything. I remember one of my husband's uncles told us when we came that don't buy a condo, and that's a whole conversation for another day. I just don't want to say here so it's not controversial, because people actually live in condos. We rented a condos. For the fact that it's easier to rent out is a great perk, but obviously you also have to learn from people's experiences, right? Based on the figures he gave, then it was like, don't buy a condo for starters, just go to a house just because of appreciation. But at the end of the day too, if that's what your pocket can carry at the time, I think there's nothing wrong with starting with it, but just having the knowledge that I have to be out of it and maybe now turn it to an investment property with time. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. I said a lot of things, definitely didn't even follow my like notes or whatever, but I hope that this was helpful. If it was, definitely let me know in the comments, and subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and hopefully I still have about 2 videos to film on this home series. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Whenever your heart is broken, don't ever forget you're golden. I will find the light in your soul. I'll